Jake Morrison stared at the flashing red lights on his ship's control panel and felt his stomach drop. The hyperdrive had failed again, just like it had 3 times this month. But this time was different. This time, he was stuck in the Xerion system, and everyone in the galaxy knew what that meant. He was going to die. The cargo hauler drifted slowly toward Xerion 7, a dead planet that pilots avoided like poison. Jake had heard the stories in every space bar from here to Earth. Ships that entered this system never came back. The few rescue teams brave enough to search for survivors found only empty vessels floating in space. Their crews vanished without a trace. The reason had a name: Vorthak, the most dangerous creature in known space. A monster so deadly that entire battle fleets changed course to avoid this single planet. Jake had seen the grainy footage that survived from the last military expedition. Something huge and dark moving between the ruins of an old colony, leaving nothing but destruction in its wake. Now his failing ship was pulling him straight toward that nightmare. Jake tried the emergency beacon one more time, knowing it was useless. No one would come here to save him. He would have to fix his ship himself or become another missing pilot whose family would never know what happened to him. The planet's surface looked like a graveyard from space. Gray rocks and twisted metal structures stretched as far as he could see. The remains of several crashed ships dotted the landscape like broken teeth. Jake found a flat area near what looked like an old settlement and brought his ship down hard. The landing gear groaned under the impact but held. He sat in his pilot's chair for a long time, listening to the ship's systems hum around him. His hands shook as he checked his supplies. 3 days of food, maybe 4 if he was careful, a basic medical kit, a plasma torch for cutting metal, a sidearm that would be useless against something that could destroy military squads. Jake had always been curious by nature. His mother used to say it would get him in trouble someday. She had been right, but not in the way she expected. His curiosity had led him to become a pilot, to see the galaxy, to take jobs that others wouldn't touch. Now it might be the only thing that could save him. He sealed his helmet and stepped outside. The air was thin but breathable according to his scanner. The ruins of the settlement stretched for several kilometers, filled with the remains of buildings and vehicles from a dozen different species. Someone had tried to make a life here once before the Vorthak came. Jake needed parts for his hyperdrive. Specifically, he needed a quantum regulator and some power conduits. Old ships and stations often had compatible parts, even if they were built by different species. He just had to find them before something found him. The first few buildings were empty except for dust and broken furniture. Jake moved carefully, making as little noise as possible. Every shadow could hide death. Every sound could be his last. But as the hours passed and nothing attacked him, he began to relax slightly. Maybe the stories were wrong. Maybe the Vorthak had moved on or died or never existed at all. Then he heard it. A low rumbling sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. It was like the growl of some massive engine, but organic. Alive. Jake froze, his heart hammering against his ribs. The sound came again, weaker this time, not aggressive, almost like a moan of pain. Jake's common sense told him to run back to his ship and lock the door. His curiosity told him to investigate. His human nature, the part that had always made him different from other species, told him that something was suffering. He followed the sound deeper into the ruins. Behind a collapsed building, Jake found a sight that would stay with him for the rest of his life. A massive creature lay trapped under a pile of twisted metal beams, probably from some kind of warehouse or factory. The thing was huge, easily 12 feet tall and covered in scales that looked like black glass. It had 6 limbs, each one thick, with muscle and a head that belonged in nightmares. This was the Vorthak, the galaxy's most feared monster, and it was hurt. One of the metal beams had pierced through the creature's side and dark blood pooled beneath it. Another beam pinned one of its rear legs at an angle that looked painful. The creature's breathing was shallow and rapid. Its eyes, when they focused on Jake, held an intelligence that surprised him. Those eyes were not the eyes of a mindless killer. They were the eyes of something that was afraid and in pain. The Vorthak made that rumbling sound again, softer now. Jake realized it had been calling for help, not hunting. How long had it been trapped here? Days? Weeks? Every instinct Jake had developed in 20 years of dangerous cargo runs told him to leave. This thing could kill him without effort, even wounded. But looking at those intelligent eyes, Jake saw something else. He saw himself trapped and alone, calling for help that would never come. He took a step closer. The Vorthak tensed, muscles bunching under its scaled hide. Jake held up his hands, empty palms forward, the way he would approach a frightened animal. "Easy there," he said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you. I can see you're in trouble." The creature's eyes followed his movements. It made a sound that was almost like a whimper. Jake had heard that same sound from injured dogs back on Earth. Jake set down his tools and opened his emergency kit. He had antibiotics, painkillers, and synthetic bandages designed to work on most known biology. It probably wasn't enough for something this size, but it was better than nothing. The hardest part was getting close enough to help. The Vorthak watched him approach with eyes that seemed to weigh his intentions. When Jake knelt beside the creature's wounded side, he could feel its breath on his face. One snap of those jaws could end him instantly. Instead, the Vorthak held perfectly still while Jake cleaned the wound and applied what medicines he could. The creature's scales were warm to the touch, and Jake could feel its heartbeat, strong and steady, despite the injury. "There," Jake said when he finished. "That should help with the infection. Now let's see about getting you out of here." The metal beams were too heavy for Jake to move alone, but his plasma torch could cut through them. The Vorthak seemed to understand what he was doing and positioned itself to avoid the falling metal. When the last beam fell away, the creature slowly pulled itself free. For a moment, they looked at each other across 3 feet of empty space. The most feared monster in the galaxy, and a simple cargo pilot who should have known better than to help. The Vorthak made a sound that was almost like a purr. Jake opened his emergency rations and offered half to the creature. He had no idea what Vorthak ate, but the thing looked starved. The creature sniffed the food carefully, then ate it with surprising delicacy for something with such large teeth. They shared Jake's dinner in the ruins of an alien city, while 2 moons rose over the horizon. The Vorthak curled up nearby like an enormous cat, keeping one eye on Jake but no longer treating him as a threat. "I guess you're not so bad after all," Jake said quietly. "Maybe the stories were wrong about you. Maybe they're wrong about a lot of things." The creature made that purring sound again, and Jake realized he might have just made the strangest friend of his life. Now he just had to figure out how to fix his ship and get them both off this dead planet alive. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But tonight, for the first time since landing on Zarian 7, Jake Morrison did not feel alone. Jake woke up to the sound of metal scraping against stone. He sat up quickly, reaching for his sidearm before remembering where he was. The Vorthak stood near his ship, dragging a long piece of twisted steel toward the landing ramp. "What are you doing?" Jake asked, climbing out of his makeshift bed in the ship's cargo hold. The creature dropped the metal and made a series of clicking sounds. It pointed at the steel, then at Jake's ship, then back at the steel. Jake stared for a moment, before understanding hit him. "You found me parts," he said in amazement. "You're trying to help me fix my ship." The Vorthak made that purring sound he had heard the night before. Jake examined the metal piece and realized it was exactly the right size for the support bracket he needed. The creature had somehow understood what Jake was trying to do and found the perfect solution. Over the next 2 days, the pattern continued. Jake would work on his ship, and the Vorthak would disappear into the ruins, returning with useful materials. Copper wire from an old communication station, power cells that still held a charge, even a quantum regulator that was almost new. Jake began calling the creature Rex because of the way it carried itself with dignity and intelligence. Rex seemed to like the name, making happy clicking sounds whenever Jake used it. On the 3rd day, everything changed. Jake was welding a new power conduit when Rex suddenly stood up, all 6 limbs tense. The creature made a low warning growl and moved to stand between Jake and the sky. "What is it?" Jake asked. But then he heard it too. the high whine of military engines approaching fast. 3 ships dropped out of hyperspace and descended toward the planet. Jake recognized the design immediately. Terran Defense Corps. The cavalry had arrived, but they probably thought they were coming to collect his body. The lead ship was a heavy cruiser called the Starfire. Jake had seen ships like it in the war against the Zephyr pirates. It carried enough firepower to level a city. The other 2 were smaller escort vessels bristling with weapons. Rex backed toward Jake, making nervous chittering sounds. The creature's scales had darkened, and Jake could see the muscles bunching under its hide. Rex was preparing for a fight. "Easy, big guy," Jake said, putting a hand on Rex's flank. "Let me handle this." Jake activated his emergency beacon and opened a communication channel. "Starfire, this is Jake Morrison of the cargo vessel Lucky Strike. I'm alive and well. Please do not fire on the surface." There was a long pause before a crisp female voice responded. "Morrison, this is Captain Lisa Grant. We detected your distress signal 3 days ago. What is your status?" "I'm fine, Captain. My hyperdrive failed, but I've almost got it repaired." Another pause. "Morrison, are you aware of what planet you're on?" "Yes, ma'am. Zarion 7. Then you know about the Vorthak. We're reading a large life form near your position. Get to your ship immediately. We're coming down to extract you." Jake looked at Rex, who was watching the approaching ships with obvious fear. "Captain, I need you to listen carefully. The Vorthak is not hostile. I repeat, it is not hostile. It has been helping me repair my ship." The silence stretched so long that Jake thought the connection had failed. When Captain Grant spoke again, her voice was tight with disbelief. "Say, again, Morrison, did you just tell me the Vorthak has been helping you?" "Yes, ma'am. His name is Rex, and he's been bringing me parts and keeping me company. He's actually quite friendly once you get to know him." "Morrison, you may be suffering from oxygen deprivation or psychological shock. We're landing now. Stay where you are." The 3 ships settled onto the rocky surface about 100 meters from Jake's position. Rex made unhappy rumbling sounds as armed soldiers poured out of the vessels. Jake counted at least 30 troops in full combat armor, all weapons trained on Rex. Captain Grant was a tall woman with short gray hair and the kind of steady eyes that had seen too much combat. She approached slowly, keeping her sidearm ready, but not directly pointed at Rex. "Morrison," she called out, "step away from the creature." "I can't do that, Captain. Rex is my friend." "Rex?" Captain Grant stopped walking. "You named it?" "Him," Jake corrected. "And yes, I named him. Rex, this is Captain Grant. She's here to help us." Rex looked at Jake, then at the captain, then made a sound that was almost like a greeting. Captain Grant's eyes widened in surprise. "Dr. Rivera?" she called over her shoulder. "You need to see this." A thin man with wild hair and thick glasses jogged forward, carrying a scanner and a tablet. This had to be the expedition's science officer. Dr. Alex Rivera had written half the papers on xenobiology that Jake had read in school. "Fascinating," Dr. Rivera breathed, studying his scanner readings. "The creature shows no signs of aggression. Its brain activity indicates curiosity rather than hostility." Rex tilted his massive head, watching the scanner with interest. He made a series of clicks and chirps that sounded almost like questions. "It's trying to communicate," Dr. Rivera said excitedly. "Captain, this creature is displaying complex social behaviors. Look at how it positions itself protectively near Morrison while still showing submission signals to us." Captain Grant kept her weapon ready. "Doctor, this thing has killed entire survey teams." "Actually," Jake said, "I don't think he has. Rex was trapped under debris when I found him. He was starving and wounded. I think he's been hiding here, not hunting." Dr. Rivera nodded enthusiastically. "That would make sense. Vorthak are pack hunters according to the old records. A lone individual would be defensive rather than aggressive." "Mr. Morrison, how exactly did you make contact?" Jake told the story of finding Rex trapped and wounded. As he spoke, Rex moved closer to him, making soft sounds of agreement at certain parts. The creature clearly recognized the words even if he couldn't speak them. "Remarkable," Dr. Rivera said. You've achieved first contact with one of the galaxy's most mysterious species. Do you realize what this means? It means, Captain Grant said slowly, that we may have been wrong about the Vorthak for a very long time. One of the soldiers, a young man who looked barely old enough to serve, lowered his rifle slightly. Captain, the creature brought Morrison a power cell. I can see it from here. Why would a predator do that? Rex seemed to understand he was being discussed. He walked over to Jake's ship and picked up the quantum regulator he had found, holding it out toward Dr. Rivera like an offering. He's showing off, Jake said with a grin. Rex is proud of the parts he found for me. Dr. Rivera accepted the device carefully, and Rex made happy purring sounds. Captain, I recommend we establish a peaceful contact protocol immediately. This could change everything we know about interspecies relations. Captain Grant holstered her weapon. Morrison, are you willing to act as liaison? It seems the creature has bonded with you specifically. Jake looked at Rex, who was now playing with Dr. Rivera's scanner under the scientist's delighted supervision. A week ago, Jake had been just another cargo pilot running routine deliveries. Now he might be making galactic history. I'd be honored, Captain. Rex and I make a good team. Rex looked up at the sound of his name and made a sound that Jake was beginning to recognize as laughter. The most feared creature in the galaxy was laughing at the absurdity of the situation. Maybe the galaxy was about to learn that monsters were not always what they seemed to be. 3 months after leaving Zarian 7, Jake Morrison was no longer just another cargo pilot. He was the man who traveled with a Vorthak, and that made him famous across the galaxy. His small cargo ship had been upgraded with military-grade shields and communication equipment. Rex had his own custom sleeping area in the cargo hold, complete with temperature controls and a food processor that could make the protein-rich diet he needed. But fame was not what Jake had wanted. What he discovered was that he and Rex made an incredible team. Their first real job came from Commander Paul Hayes of the Galactic Peace Corps. Hayes was a big man with kind eyes who had spent his career preventing wars instead of fighting them. He met Jake and Rex at the New Geneva space station, one of the few places that would allow Rex to dock. I have a problem, Hayes said, sitting across from Jake in the station's diplomatic lounge. Rex lay nearby, his massive form attracting stares from other visitors. There's a mining colony on Tau Ceti 4 that's having trouble with the local wildlife. The creatures are attacking the miners, but they're also a protected species. We can't just eliminate them. Jake nodded. What kind of creatures? Rock crawlers. About the size of large dogs, but they hunt in packs and they're very aggressive. The miners can't work safely. But if we harm the crawlers, we'll face sanctions from the Environmental Protection Agency. Rex lifted his head and made a questioning sound. Jake had learned to read the creature's body language over the past months. Rex was interested. What do you think, big guy? Jake asked. Want to try talking to some rock crawlers? Rex made a sound that Jake had come to recognize as agreement. The mining colony was a collection of prefab buildings and heavy equipment scattered across a red desert landscape. The miners were tough people who worked dangerous jobs for good money, but they looked nervous when Jake's ship landed and Rex emerged. That's the thing that's supposed to help us? Asked Martha Cole, the colony supervisor. She was a small woman with graying hair and hands stained from years of handling ore. It's bigger than the crawlers, but there are hundreds of them. Jake smiled. Rex doesn't work by being scary, he works by being smart. The rock crawlers were indeed about the size of large dogs with gray-brown skin that blended perfectly with the rocky terrain. They had 6 legs like Rex, but they were much smaller and moved in quick, nervous bursts. The pack that had been causing trouble lived in a cave system near the main mining site. Rex studied the crawlers from a distance for 2 days before making his move. Jake watched through binoculars as Rex approached the cave entrance alone. The crawlers came out to meet him, chittering and hissing. What happened next amazed everyone watching. Rex didn't fight the crawlers. Instead, he began making complex sounds, clicks and growls and purrs that seemed to mean something to the smaller creatures. After an hour of this strange conversation, Rex returned to Jake. Well? Jake asked. Rex made a series of sounds and gestures that Jake was beginning to understand. Rex pointed at the mining equipment, then at the cave, then made a digging motion with his claws. The mining is disturbing their eggs, Jake realized. They're not being aggressive, they're protecting their babies. The solution was simple once they understood the problem. The miners moved their operations 2 kilometers south, away from the crawlers' breeding caves. In return, the crawlers stopped their attacks. Both species could share the planet without conflict. Commander Hayes was so impressed that he offered Jake a permanent contract. "I've got a dozen situations like this across the galaxy," he said. "Species that can't communicate with each other. Conflicts that could be solved if someone could just get them talking." Jake accepted, and his reputation grew. He and Rex became known as the team that could solve impossible problems. They mediated a territorial dispute between 2 alien colonies on Rigel 7. They helped establish trade agreements between humans and the crystalline beings of Vega Prime. They even convinced a group of space pirates to give up raiding in exchange for legitimate salvage contracts. Rex proved to be much more than Jake had expected. The Vorthak could detect lies by smelling chemical changes in a person's body. He could solve mechanical problems that stumped experienced engineers. Most importantly, Rex had a natural sense of justice that made him an excellent judge of character. Their biggest test came when they were called to the Centauri system. A war had been raging there for 5 years between the human colonists and the native Centaurians. Thousands had died on both sides, and neither species would agree to peace talks. Jake and Rex arrived to find a system in chaos. Human warships patrolled the outer planets while Centaurian fighters struck at supply convoys. Both sides were exhausted, but too proud to stop fighting. The breakthrough came when Rex detected something the human negotiators had missed. The Centaurians were not just angry about losing territory, they were grieving. Their children were dying from a disease that had appeared after human colonization began. Jake discovered that human industrial waste was poisoning the water systems where Centaurian young developed. The humans had not done it on purpose, but the damage was real. Once the colonists understood what was happening, they agreed to clean up the contamination and provide medical aid. The peace treaty was signed aboard Jake's ship, with Rex serving as a witness. The Centaurian ambassador, a being that looked like a giant butterfly with silver wings, actually bowed to Rex in gratitude. "Your companion sees truth where others see only conflict," the ambassador told Jake. "His people are wise." But the mission that changed everything happened on a routine transport job. Jake was delivering medical supplies to a refugee camp when pirates attacked the convoy. The transport carrying evacuated families was hit and began to break apart. Jake managed to dock with the damaged ship and started evacuating survivors. That was when he saw them, a group of human children, maybe 6 or 7 years old, huddled in a corner and crying in terror. Rex squeezed through the airlock and approached the children slowly. Jake expected them to be afraid, but something amazing happened instead. The biggest child, a girl with dark hair and brave eyes, stepped forward and reached out to touch Rex's scales. "Are you here to help us?" she asked. Rex made the gentlest sound Jake had ever heard from him, a soft humming that seemed to calm the children immediately. He carefully gathered them up with his powerful arms and carried them to safety, moving as delicately as if they were made of glass. The rescue was recorded by the convoy's cameras, and the footage spread across the galaxy within hours. The image of the feared Vorthak cradling human children became one of the most famous pictures in galactic history. Jake realized that day that Rex was not just his partner. Rex had become a symbol of something larger, the idea that understanding was possible between any species, no matter how different they seemed. "You're changing the galaxy," Jake told Rex that night as they traveled toward their next job. "People are starting to see that monsters don't have to be monsters." Rex made his laughing sound and gently bumped Jake with his massive head. In his own way, he was saying that Jake had changed too. The simple cargo pilot had become something he never expected to be, a bridge between worlds, a translator of hearts, a proof that friendship could exist anywhere in the vast darkness of space. Their partnership had grown into something that neither of them could have imagined when they first met in the ruins of Zarion 7. The distress call came at 3 in the morning, ship time. Jake woke to red emergency lights flashing in his cabin, and Rex making worried sounds from the cargo hold. "Jake Morrison here," he said into the communicator, still half asleep. "Morrison, this is Admiral Grant. We have a situation in the outer spiral. 3 mining colonies have been attacked in the past week. The attacks match Vorthak patterns." Jake sat up quickly. Lisa Grant had been promoted after their successful first contact mission, but she still called him directly when problems arose. "Rex has been with me the whole time," Jake said. "Whatever attacked those colonies, it wasn't him." "I know that," Grant replied. "But the Colonial Defense Force doesn't. They're demanding that all Vorthak be contained or eliminated. I need you and Rex to investigate before this situation gets out of control." Jake found Rex waiting by the ship's exit, already wearing the communication device that Dr. Rivera had built for him. The device translated Rex's sounds into basic galactic standard, though his grammar was still simple. "Rex worried," the device said in its mechanical voice. "Other Rex in trouble?" "Other Rex?" Jake asked. "You mean there are more of your people out there?" Rex made a series of complex sounds that the translator struggled with. "Family lost. Rex looked for family long time. Maybe family found, maybe family hurt." Jake realized that Rex had never told him the whole story of his past. He had assumed Rex was alone by choice, but maybe that wasn't true. The first attacked colony was on Kepler 442b, a mining world that extracted rare metals from asteroid belts. The colony administrator was a nervous man named Gary Webb who jumped at every sound. "It came at night," Webb said, showing Jake the security footage. 12 feet tall, dark scales, 6 limbs, just like the reports describe of Vorthak. "It destroyed our main processing plant and killed 2 guards." Jake watched the blurry footage with Rex beside him. The creature in the video did look like a Vorthak, but something was wrong. Its movements were too jerky, too violent. Rex watched the video and made distressed sounds. "Rex says that's not normal behavior," Jake told Webb. "Vorthak don't attack without reason." "Tell that to my dead guards," Webb snapped. Rex spent hours examining the attack site while Jake interviewed witnesses. The pattern was strange. The creature had targeted specific equipment and seemed to know exactly what would cause the most damage. This wasn't random violence. "Rex finds scent," the translator announced. "Bad smell. Medicine smell. Pain smell." Jake knelt beside Rex, who was sniffing at claw marks on a metal wall. "What kind of medicine smell?" Rex made frustrated sounds as he tried to explain. Finally, he scratched symbols in the dirt, chemical formulas that Jake didn't recognize. Their investigation led them to 2 more attacked colonies, and the pattern became clearer. Each attack targeted mining operations that were working near certain types of asteroid fields. Each creature seemed to know exactly where to strike for maximum damage, and each attack site smelled of the same chemicals that Rex had detected. The breakthrough came when Jake's ship intercepted a distress call from a research station in an uncharted system. The signal was weak and filled with static, but Jake caught enough to know people were in trouble. "Rex, what do you think?" Jake asked. "Could be dangerous. Rex help people," the translator said simply. "Always help people." The research station was hidden inside a hollowed-out asteroid, almost impossible to spot unless you knew where to look. Jake's ship detected massive power signatures and sophisticated equipment that didn't match what should be at a simple research facility. "This is Dr. Elena Cross of the Xenobiology Research Institute," came a crisp voice over the radio. "Please, identify yourselves. Jake Morrison and Rex responding to your distress call. What's your situation?" There was a pause. "Morrison, the one who works with the Vorthak? Perfect timing. We need your expertise." Jake felt something cold in his stomach. The way Dr. Cross said perfect timing didn't sound right. They docked with the station and were met by Dr. Cross herself. She was a tall woman with silver hair and cold blue eyes that reminded Jake of winter ice. Behind her stood armed guards who watched Rex with obvious fear. "Welcome," Dr. Cross said. "I've been wanting to meet the famous Vorthak Whisperer." She led them through sterile corridors lined with laboratories. Jake glimpsed strange equipment and specimen containers, but Dr. Cross moved too quickly for him to get a good look. We've been studying Vorthak behavior patterns, she explained, trying to understand what makes them so dangerous. Your friend here could help us complete our research. Rex had been quiet since they boarded the station, but now he made a low, growling sound. The translator said, "Rex smell family. Rex smell pain." Family? Jake stopped walking. "Doctor, do you have other Vorthak here?" Dr. Cross smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "We have several specimens, yes. For research purposes." "Specimens?" Jake's voice got hard. "You mean prisoners?" "Don't be dramatic, Morrison. We're advancing the cause of science." Rex suddenly roared, a sound of pure rage that Jake had never heard from him before. The Vorthak charged down the corridor, following a scent that only he could detect. "Stop him!" Dr. Cross shouted, but Rex was already too far ahead. Jake ran, after Rex, ignoring the shouts and alarm bells behind him. He found Rex standing before a heavy door, clawing at the metal and making sounds of desperate grief. "Rex, open door," the translator said. "Family inside. Family hurt bad." Jake used his plasma torch to cut through the lock. The door slid open to reveal a sight that would haunt his dreams forever. Dozens of Vorthak were held in individual cells, each one connected to machines and tubes. Some were unconscious. Others moved in the jerky, unnatural way Jake had seen in the attack videos. Chemicals dripped into their bodies through IV lines, and their eyes held no intelligence, only pain and madness. "My God," Jake whispered. "What have you done to them?" Dr. Cross appeared behind him with her guards. "We're creating the perfect biological weapon," she said calmly. "Vorthak are naturally strong and intelligent, but they're too peaceful. We've been conditioning them to be more aggressive." Rex was moving from cell to cell, making heartbroken sounds as he recognized faces. These were his people, his family, the pack he had been searching for all these years. "The attacks on the colonies," Jake realized. "You've been testing them." "Field trials, yes. We need to see how well our conditioning works in real situations." Rex turned toward Dr. Cross, and Jake saw something in his friend's eyes that terrified him. Pure, cold hatred. Rex had always been gentle, but seeing his family tortured had awakened something dark in him. "Rex," Jake said softly, "don't let them turn you into what they made those others." Rex looked at Jake, and slowly the rage faded from his eyes. "Jake right," the translator said. "Rex not become monster. Rex save family." What followed was the most difficult rescue Jake had ever attempted. Rex used his knowledge of Vorthak biology to safely disconnect the machines keeping his people drugged. Jake worked frantically to override the cell locks while dodging security forces. The hardest part was dealing with the Vorthak, who had been driven insane by the conditioning. They attacked anyone who came near, even Rex, but Rex didn't give up on them. He spoke to each one in the complex language of his people, reminding them who they were beneath the madness. Slowly, painfully, the tortured Vorthak began to remember. They were not weapons. They were people with families and names and dreams that had been stolen from them. The rescue took 18 hours. Jake's hands shook from exhaustion as he helped the last recovered Vorthak onto the transport ships that Admiral Grant had sent. 43 of Rex's people had been freed from Dr. Cross's laboratory, but 12 had been too damaged by the experiments to save. Rex stood at the edge of the landing bay, surrounded by his family for the first time in decades. The other Vorthak were thin and scarred, but they were alive. They touched Rex gently with their claws, making soft sounds that Jake's translator couldn't convert into words. Some emotions were too deep for any language. "The Galactic Council wants to meet with you," Admiral Grant told Jake. "What Dr. Cross was doing violated every treaty we have about biological weapons. Your testimony will help ensure she spends the rest of her life in prison." Jake nodded, but he was watching Rex say goodbye to a young Vorthak who might have been his brother or son. The family resemblance was clear in the shape of their heads and the pattern of their scales. "What happens to them now?" Jake asked. "We're establishing a protected world for Vorthak recovery. Kepler 438b has the right climate and no other intelligent species. They can heal there and rebuild their society." Rex approached Jake, moving slowly as if each step was difficult. The communication device around his neck translated his words. Rex must go with family. Family need Rex to help remember who they are. Jake felt his heart break a little. He had known this moment would come eventually, but it still hurt. I understand, Rex. Your people need you more than I do. Jake teach Rex that being different not mean being alone, Rex said. Now, Rex teach family same thing. They stood together in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Rex made a sound that the translator rendered as laughter. Jake think Rex leaving forever? Aren't you? Rex have family now, but Jake's still best friend. Rex come visit when family safe. 3 months later, Jake was working alone again, running cargo between the inner colonies. It felt strange to pilot his ship without Rex's massive presence in the cargo hold. He had gotten used to having someone to talk to during the long jumps through hyperspace. The job was simple. Medical, supplies to a new colony on the frontier. But when Jake arrived at Kepler 186F, he found the colonists in a panic. There's something in the forest, explained colony leader Ben Martinez. Something big. It's been watching us for days, but it won't come close enough for us to get a good look, Jake smiled. Has it done anything threatening? Well, no. But it left a pile of fruit outside our main gate yesterday, and this morning someone found firewood stacked near the school. Sounds like it's trying to be helpful, Jake said. Mind if I take a look? He found Rex waiting in a clearing about a kilometer from the colony. The Vorthak looked healthier than Jake had seen him in months. His scales had regained their shine and he moved with confidence and purpose. Rex, Jake called out. You're supposed to be helping your family recover. Family much better, the translator said. Family remember how to be Vorthak again. Family say Rex should do what makes Rex happy. And what makes you happy? Working with Jake. Helping people. Making Galaxy safer for everyone. Rex explained that his people were indeed healing on their new world. The younger Vorthak were recovering quickly from their trauma, and the elders were teaching them the old ways that Dr. Cross had tried to destroy. But Rex had realized something during his time with them. Rex not just Vorthak, the translator said. Rex also friend to humans. Rex want to be bridge between species like Jake taught Rex. They spent the next few days helping the colonists on Kepler 186F establish peaceful contact with the local wildlife. Rex's presence intimidated the more dangerous predators while attracting the curious herbivores. Soon the colonists were trading with tree-dwelling creatures who had complex tool-making abilities. You know, Jake said as they prepared to leave, I got an offer from the Galactic Peace Corps. They want to create a new division for interspecies relations. They asked me to head it up. Jake accept? I was thinking about it. But I'd need a partner, someone who understands different species and can help with communication. Rex made his laughing sound. Rex no perfect partner for job. The interspecies relations division started small, just Jake and Rex working out of a converted cargo hauler. But word spread quickly about the human and Vorthak who could solve problems that had baffled diplomats for years. Their first official case was a trade dispute between the silicon-based crystalline collective and the water-breathing Aquari Federation. The two species couldn't even meet in the same environment, let alone negotiate. Jake and Rex spent 6 months developing a 3-way translation system that allowed both species to communicate through them. The peace treaty they helped create opened up new trade routes worth billions of credits and established the first truly multi-environment space stations in galactic history. More success followed. They mediated territorial disputes, prevented 3 different wars, and helped establish the first interspecies colony, where 5 different alien races lived and worked together. Rex became the unofficial ambassador for his own people, traveling regularly between the Vorthak sanctuary world and the rest of the galaxy. The biggest moment came 2 years later, when Jake received a message from Earth. His home planet wanted him to return for a special ceremony. The President of Earth wants to give you the Medal of Galactic Service, Admiral Grant explained over the communication link. It's the highest honor we can give to a civilian. Jake felt embarrassed. I just did what felt right. You changed. The course of galactic history, Jake. Before you and Rex, first contact situations almost always led to conflict. Now we have protocols based on your methods. We have an entire academy teaching diplomats how to approach unknown species with empathy instead of fear. The ceremony was held at the United Earth headquarters in Geneva. Jake wore his best civilian clothes and felt completely out of place among the generals and politicians. Rex had insisted on coming despite his discomfort in formal settings. When Jake's name was called, he walked to the podium where the president of Earth waited with the medal. But before the president could speak, Jake turned to address the crowd. "I can't accept this honor alone," he said. "Everything I've accomplished was only possible because a creature I was taught to fear chose to trust me instead. Rex didn't have to help me repair my ship on Zerion 7. He could have left me to die and no one would have blamed him. Instead, he chose friendship over fear." Jake gestured to Rex, who stood at the side of the stage looking uncomfortable with all the attention. "This medal belongs to both of us. It represents the idea that any species, no matter how different or dangerous they might seem, can become family if we're willing to see beyond our prejudices." Rex made a sound that the translator rendered as, "Jake, make Rex cry. Rex not cry in public." The crowd laughed, and Jake saw tears in many eyes. Even the president was smiling as he handed Jake the medal. Later, as they flew back toward the frontier in their ship, Rex asked, "Jake happy with ceremony?" "I'm happy we're together," Jake replied. "That's all that matters." Rex think about first day on Zerion 7. Rex so angry and hurt. Rex think all species hate Vorthak. What changed your mind? Jake share food with Rex. Small thing but mean everything. Show Rex that not all beings afraid of different. Jake looked out at the stars streaming past the viewport. Somewhere out there, other species were meeting for the first time. Some of those meetings would end in conflict, but others would end in friendship. And maybe, if he and Rex were lucky, they would be there to help make sure understanding won over fear. "Ready for our next adventure?" Jake asked. "Rex always ready for adventure with Jake," the translator said. Rex and Jake make galaxy better place, one friendship at time.